The wolf should not have been alive. That was the first thing Alara thought when she found him bleeding into the snow. His massive body convulsed with each labored breath. Black fur matted with blood so dark it looked like oil against the white ground. And his eyes. God, his eyes were wrong. They glowed amber even as the light faded from them, flickering like dying embers in a hearth going cold. Everyone in the mountain villages knew about the beast in the northern woods. The rogue wolf that killed without mercy. The monster that even the pack hunters would not track. Mothers used his legend to frighten children into obedience. Stay inside after dark or the shadow wolf will find you. But Alara had never been good at following warnings. She was already damned anyway, already marked, already cast out. What was one more sin added to the list of things that made her too dangerous to keep, too valuable to kill? So she knelt in the snow beside the dying wolf everyone feared, and she pressed her bare hands against his torn flesh. And she let the silver fire that lived beneath her skin pour into his wounds, the fire that had gotten her exiled, the fire that made her pack call her cursed, the fire that was about to change everything. Because when those amber eyes snapped open and locked onto hers, Alara realized three things at once. 1, this was no rogue wolf. 2, he recognized her. And 3, she had just saved the life of the most powerful alpha in the Northern Territories, the man who ruled from a throne of storms and shadows, the king whose very name made lesser wolves bow their heads. But that understanding came later. In the moment, there was only the wolf, the blood, the terrible choice between walking away and letting her power answer a need she could not ignore. Alara's grandmother used to say that the gift of healing was also a curse, because once you know someone is suffering, you cannot unknow it. And if you have the power to help and choose not to, that choice will haunt you forever. Her grandmother had been a healer, one of the best the Northern Packs had ever known. She had also been dead for 30 years, burned out and exhausted, used up by the very gift that should have made her legendary. Alara had sworn she would never follow that path, would never let her power consume her the way it had consumed her grandmother, would never sacrifice herself for wolves who looked at her with fear instead of gratitude. But the wolf was dying, right here in front of her. This magnificent, terrifying creature was bleeding out in the snow, and Alara was probably the only living soul for miles who could do anything about it. Her grandmother's voice whispered through her memory, soft and impossibly gentle. If you have the power to help and choose not to, that choice will haunt you forever. Damn it. Alara knelt beside the wolf, ignoring every survival instinct screaming at her to run. Up close, she could see the extent of his injuries, deep gashes across his ribs, a nasty wound on his hind leg, and something worse, something that made her silver fire rise instinctively to the surface of her skin. Poison. She could smell it in his blood. Acrid and wrong. Someone had not just tried to kill this wolf, they had tried to make sure he stayed dead. This is going to hurt, Alara warned, though she doubted he could understand her. And you are probably going to try to bite me. But if you want to live, you need to trust me. Just for a minute, can you do that? The amber eyes narrowed, assessed her, and then impossibly, the wolf went still, stopped fighting, like he had made a decision, like he was choosing to trust her. Alara did not let herself think about how strange that was. She pressed her hands against his largest wound and let go of the iron control she had maintained over her fire for 3 months. Silver flames erupted from her palms, poured into the wolf's body. Not burning, healing, seeking out the poison, the infection, the torn flesh, and shattered bone. Alara felt her power surge through him like a river finding its course, hot and bright and terrifyingly strong. The wolf's body went rigid. A howl tore from his throat, pain and shock, and something else, something that sounded almost like recognition. Alara held on even as her own strength began to waver. Even as the silver fire demanded more and more of her, she had never healed anything this big before, never pushed her power this far. But she could not stop now. If she stopped, he would die, and for reasons she could not explain, that was unacceptable. Come on, she gasped, sweat freezing on her face despite the heat pouring from her hands. Come on, damn you, fight, live. The wolf's eyes locked onto hers, and Alara swore she saw something flicker in those amber depths, something human, something that knew exactly what she was doing. The healing fire surged one last time, white hot and absolute. Alara felt the poison break apart, felt the wounds knit together, felt life flood back into the massive body beneath her hands. And then the fire consumed everything she had left. The world went dark. 3 months earlier, Alara had still believed she might have a future. 3 months earlier, she had stood in the center of the Crescent Moon Pack's gathering circle, surrounded by wolves who had known her since she was a child, and she had tried to prove she was not dangerous. She had failed spectacularly. The burned scars in the sacred oak tree were still smoking when they dragged her away. I did not mean to, she had gasped, even as silver flames licked up her arms, even as the elders backed away with fear written across their faces. I swear, I was just trying to shift, like everyone else. Enough, Alpha Thorn's voice had cut through her, pleading like a blade. He was a hard man, weathered by decades of keeping the pack safe, and he looked at Alara like she was a bomb about to detonate. You are not like everyone else, girl. You never have been. Her mother had been crying. Her father would not meet her eyes. And her sister, her perfect golden-furred sister, Liana, had whispered just loud enough for Alara to hear. I told you she was broken. Broken. The word had lodged in Alara's chest like a splinter, sharp and infected. Because maybe Liana was right. Maybe the silver fire that sparked beneath Alara's skin whenever her emotions ran high was not a gift. Maybe it was exactly what the pack elders claimed. A corruption, a mutation, a sign that something in her bloodline had gone terribly dangerously wrong. Normal werewolves shifted into wolves. They felt the moon's pull and transformed into creatures of fur and fang. Powerful and whole. Alara barely shifted at all, and when she did, the fire came with her, silver flames that burned without consuming. That marked everything they touched. That made the other wolves' hackles rise with instinctive fear. You have until sunrise, Alpha Thorn had declared. His voice heavy with something that might have been regret, but felt like relief. Take what you can carry, go north into the unclaimed territories, and pray to the moon goddess that whatever you are, whatever is inside you does not follow you back to us. Exile. The word tasted like ash in her mouth. Her mother had packed her a bag with shaking hands, dried meat, a water skin, a wool cloak that had belonged to Alara's grandmother. I am sorry, she had whispered, tears streaming down her face. I am so sorry, baby. If I had known when you were born, if I had seen any sign, it is not your fault, Mom. Alara had tried to keep her voice steady, tried to be brave. But the silver flames were already sparking at her fingertips, responding to the grief that threatened to crack her open. I am the one who is broken. No, her mother had gripped her shoulders, fierce and desperate. You are not broken. You are just different. And maybe different is not always bad. Maybe it just means you are meant for something we cannot see yet. Pretty words. They had not stopped the pack from watching her leave with relief in their eyes. They had not stopped Liana from turning her back without a goodbye. And they had not stopped Alara from walking into the wilderness alone. 19 years old and utterly certain she was going to die before winter ended. When Alara woke, she was staring up at an unfamiliar ceiling. Number, not a ceiling, canvas, a tent. She bolted upright, heart hammering, silver fire already sparking at her fingertips in self-defense. Where was she? How had she gotten here? The last thing she remembered was the wolf, the massive black wolf with amber eyes and poison in his blood. She had healed him, had poured everything she had into saving a creature that should have terrified her. And then, nothing. Alara spun around searching for the wolf and found something that made her blood run cold. A man. He sat in the corner of the tent, perfectly still, watching her with eyes that glowed amber even in the dim light. He was beautiful in the way dangerous things are beautiful, all sharp edges and controlled power, dark hair that fell past his shoulders, features that could have been carved from stone, and a body that radiated strength even at rest. He wore simple black clothing that looked expensive, and there were silver rings on his fingers that marked him as someone important, someone powerful, someone Alara had definitely seen before. Her mind flashed back to a year ago, the annual gathering of the Northern Packs, the ceremony where the Alpha King himself had presided over territorial disputes, his presence so commanding that even the strongest alphas had bowed their heads in deference. Alara had been nobody then, just another young wolf in the crowd, trying to stay invisible while her silver fire sparked nervously beneath her skin. But she had seen him. Everyone had. Demon Nightshade, ruler of the Northern Territories, legend made flesh, the man who now sat 3 feet away from her, alive and whole and utterly terrifying. You, Alara whispered, her voice cracking. You are alive. Thanks to you, Demon Nightshade finished, his voice like dark honey. He stood, and Alara's instincts screamed at her to run, but she was trapped between him and the tent wall. And besides, her legs felt like water. The healing had taken too much out of her. Damon crossed the space between them in 2 strides. He moved like a predator, graceful and deadly. And when he crouched down to her level, Alara stopped breathing. "What is your name?" he asked. Alara's mind raced. Should she lie? Would he recognize her from the gathering? Would he remember her pack? "I can hear your heartbeat," Demon said, amusement flickering across his features. "You are terrified, but you were not afraid when you knelt beside a dying wolf in the snow." "Why is that?" The wolf could not ask me questions. The words escaped before Alara could stop them. Demon's lips curved into something that might have been a smile. True, he tilted his head, studying her with an intensity that made her feel like he could see straight through her skin. "You have silver fire in your veins. I felt it when you healed me. That is rare, I am aware, and you are alone out here. Exiled, I am guessing. Since no wolf would choose to live in the unclaimed territories unless they had no other choice." Alara's jaw tightened. "Is there a point to this interrogation?" "Yes." Demon reached out, and before Alara could flinch away, he caught her hand. His thumb brushed across her palm, right over the spot where her silver fire burned hottest. "I am trying to figure out why the moon goddess would send a cursed exiled little wolf to save the life of a king." "I am not cursed," Alara snapped, even though she had said the exact same thing about herself 100 times. "And I did not save you for any grand reason. You were dying. I could help. So I did. Just like that. Just like that." Demon stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed, a short, sharp sound that held no humor. "Do you know how many wolves would have let me die? How many would have celebrated finding the great Alpha King bleeding out in the snow?" Alara pulled her hand from his grip. "Sounds like you have some enemies. More than I can count." Demon's expression darkened. "The poison in my blood was not an accident. Someone on my own council tried to have me assassinated 3 days ago. They hired a pack of rogues to hunt me down, made sure I could not heal, left me to die slowly." Horror crawled up Alara's spine. "Your own council power makes people do terrible things." Demon stood, his presence filling the tent. "But what is done is done. I survived. And now I need to repay the debt I owe." "You do not owe me anything," Alara said quickly. The last thing she needed was to be in debt to the most powerful alpha in the north. "I helped because I could. That is it. We are even." "No," Demon said softly, his amber eyes burning into hers. "We are not." He moved to the tent entrance, then paused. When he looked back at her, there was something in his expression that made Alara's breath catch, something possessive, something that felt like destiny wrapping chains around her future. "What is your name?" he asked again. This time Alara could not find a reason not to answer. "Alara," she whispered. "Alara Emberwild." Demon's eyes widened, just slightly, like he recognized the surname, like it meant something. "Emberwild," he repeated, tasting the name, the bloodline that was supposed to be extinct. Alara's heart stopped. "I do not know what you are talking about," but the lie was transparent, and they both knew it. Demon smiled then, a real smile, sharp and dangerous and hungry. "Yes, you do, and that Alara Emberwild changes everything." He left the tent before she could respond, his voice drifting back to her. "Rest, heal, and when you are strong enough, we are going to have a very interesting conversation about who you really are." Alara sat frozen, her mind spinning, her silver fire crackling beneath her skin in response to the fear and confusion and something else. Something that felt dangerously like hope. She had saved the Alpha King, and somehow in doing so, she had just set something in motion that she could not take back. The girl who had been exiled for being too dangerous had just caught the attention of the most dangerous wolf alive. God's help her. This was only the beginning. Alara did not sleep. How could she? When every time she closed her eyes, she saw those amber eyes staring at her like she was a puzzle he intended to solve. When her mind kept circling back to that one word, Emberwild, and the way Demon had said it, like he was unearthing a grave. She lay on the bedroll someone had provided, wrapped in furs that smelled like pine and smoke and something distinctly male, and tried to make sense of what had just happened to her carefully constructed exile. The tent was warm despite the winter cold outside. Too warm. There had to be a heating source she could not see. Some kind of magic woven into the fabric itself, which meant this was not just any camp. This was wealth, power, the kind of resources only someone like an Alpha King could command. Outside, she could hear voices, low, urgent conversations that stopped whenever footsteps passed too close to her tent. Guards, probably. watching her, making sure she did not run, or making sure no one got to her. The thought sent a chill down her spine that had nothing to do with temperature. Alara sat up slowly, testing her strength. Her body ached, but it was manageable. The healing had drained her more than she had expected, but she was not completely useless. Her silver fire hummed beneath her skin, restless and reactive. It always got like this when she was stressed, like a second heartbeat that pulsed in time with her anxiety. She needed to leave. That much was clear. Whatever Demon Nightshade wanted with her, whatever he thought he knew about her bloodline, it could not be good. Men like him did not do anything without a reason, without an angle. And Alara had spent her entire life being used by people who saw her as a tool, a weapon, a problem to be managed. She was not about to add an Alpha King to that list. Alara stood, her legs still shaky but functional, and crept toward the tent entrance. She could make it to the tree line if she was fast enough. Once she was in the forest, she knew how to disappear. I would not. Alara spun around, her heart leaping into her throat. Demon stood in the shadows at the back of the tent. So still she had not even noticed him. How long had he been there? How had she not sensed him? Would not what? Alara asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Run. Demon stepped into the dim light, and Alara's breath caught despite herself. He had changed clothes, still all black, but now he wore a thick winter coat lined with fur, and there were weapons strapped to his body, knives at his hips, a sword across his back. He looked every inch the warrior king he was supposed to be. You would not make it 300 yards before my guards caught you, and then I would have to explain why I am harboring a runaway exile, which would raise questions I am not prepared to answer yet. I am not your prisoner, Alara said, even though the evidence suggested otherwise. No, Demon agreed, moving closer with that predatory grace that made every instinct in her body scream danger. You are not. You are my guest. There is a difference. Guests are usually allowed to leave. Guests are usually safe. Demon stopped a few feet away, his amber eyes locked on hers. You saved my life, Alara, which means anyone who wants me dead now has a very good reason to want you dead too. So yes, you are staying here, where I can protect you, at least until I figure out what to do with you. The words sent a spike of anger through Alara's chest. I do not need your protection. I have survived 3 months alone in these woods without anyone's help. Against rabbits and deer, maybe. Demon's expression darkened. But the wolves who poisoned me, the ones who hunted me through these forests for 3 days, they are trained assassins, Alara, and they are still out there, still looking for any sign I survived. Alara's stomach dropped. You think they will come here? I know they will. Demon's jaw tightened. I left a trail. Not obvious, but enough. I want them to find me. I want them to think I am still weak, still vulnerable. His eyes glittered with something cold and furious. And when they come, I am going to find out exactly who on my council decided I was expendable. That is suicide. That is justice. Demon tilted his head, studying her. But you are right that it is dangerous, which is why you are going to stay in this tent, behind my guards, where nothing can touch you. Because I owe you a debt, Alara said flatly. Because you are valuable. The words came out low, intense. Demon took another step closer, and Alara's back hit the tent wall. She was trapped between canvas and the most powerful predator in the Northern Territories, and her silver fire was already rising to the surface in response. That fire in your veins. The way it burned through poison that should have killed me in hours. I have never seen anything like it. Never felt anything like it. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she did not, could not. His fingers brushed against her wrist, right over her pulse point. Alara gasped as silver flames erupted across her skin, crawling up her arm in response to his touch. But Damon did not flinch, did not pull away. Instead, his eyes widened with something that looked like wonder. You see, he murmured. Magnificent. Stop, Alara whispered. But her voice had no strength. The fire was responding to him in a way it never had to anyone else. Dancing, reaching, like it recognized him on some fundamental level. Like it wanted him. Tell me about the Emberwild bloodline, Demon said, his voice dropping to something intimate, dangerous. Tell me why your family was supposed to be dead. I do not know what you are talking about, Alara lied, even as her heart hammered against her ribs. Yes, you do. Demon's thumb traced a circle on her wrist, right where the silver flames burned brightest. Your grandmother was a healer, one of the most powerful the Northern Territories ever produced. She could cure anything. Poison, curse, death itself if she caught it early enough. and she had fire in her veins. Just like you. Alara's breath came short and sharp. How did he know that? How could he possibly? She died 30 years ago. Demon continued, his eyes never leaving hers. Burned herself out, saving an entire pack from a plague that should have wiped them off the map. And when she died, everyone assumed the Emberwild gift died with her. That there were no heirs. No one left to carry that particular power forward. Maybe they were right, Alara said, her voice barely audible. Except here you are. Demon's smile was sharp, knowing. Exiled by your own pack because they were terrified of what you could do. Cast out into the wilderness to die. And instead you saved a king. I did not know you were a king when I saved you, Alara shot back. I just saw something dying and decided to help. That is all. Is it? Demon leaned in, close enough that Alara could feel the heat radiating from his body, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his amber eyes. Because I think the moon goddess has a sense of humor. I think she put you in my path for a reason, and I think you feel it too. He was right, and that terrified her, because the moment Alara had touched him, the moment her fire had poured into his body, she had felt something shift, like a lock turning, like a door opening to something vast and inevitable. She had felt seen in a way she had never experienced before, and that was more dangerous than any assassin. I do not believe in destiny, Alara whispered. Neither did I. Demon's hand moved from her wrist to her jaw, tilting her face up to meet his gaze. But I believe in survival. I believe in power. And I believe that you and I are going to be very useful to each other, Alara Emberwild. I am not a weapon you can wield. No, Demon agreed, his voice soft and deadly serious. You are much more than that. You are a healer who can burn through poison that even my court mages could not touch. You are a wolf with silver fire that responds to my presence like it is coming home. And you are the last living heir to a bloodline everyone thought was extinct. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone, and Alara hated how her body leaned into the touch. Which means you are either the answer to a prayer I did not know I was praying, or the beginning of something that is going to tear my world apart. And if I am the second one, Alara asked, her silver fire crackling between them. Damon's smile was all teeth. Then we burned together. A howl split the night. Damon's head snapped toward the sound, every muscle in his body going tense. The hand on Alara's face dropped to the knife at his hip in one fluid motion. Stay here, he commanded, already moving toward the tent entrance. Like hell, Alara shot back, following him. Demon whirled on her, his eyes flashing alpha bright. Alara, if your assassins are here, you are going to need all the help you can get. She met his gaze without flinching, even though every instinct told her to bare her throat in submission. And I am guessing I am one of the few people in this camp who can heal you if things go wrong again. Demon stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed, short, sharp, and genuinely surprised. You are either very brave or very stupid. Both, probably. Fine. Demon grabbed a second knife from somewhere and pressed it into her hand. But you stay behind me. And if I tell you to run, you run, understood? Alara nodded, even though they both knew she was lying. They burst out of the tent together into chaos. The camp was small, maybe a dozen tents arranged in a defensive circle with guards posted at intervals. But half those guards were already down, their bodies crumpled in the snow, and the rest were fighting for their lives against wolves that moved like shadows. 5 of them. No, 6, all massive, all moving with the coordinated precision of trained killers. And in the center of it all, a woman stood, watching the carnage with cold satisfaction. She was beautiful in an ice queen sort of way, pale blonde hair, sharp features, dressed in white furs that made her almost invisible against the snow. But her eyes were pure malice, and when she saw Demon emerge from the tent, her smile was poisonous. Hello, husband, she purred. Alara's stomach dropped. Husband Demon's entire body went rigid. Morgana, did you really think I would not find you? Morgana asked, her voice carrying across the clearing like a blade. Did you really think you could survive my poison and just disappear? I should have known, Demon said, his voice gone cold and deadly. Only you would be arrogant enough to try to kill me yourself. Arrogant, Morgana laughed. The sound like breaking glass. No, darling. Strategic. You were getting too close to the truth. Too close to figuring out what we have been planning. So I did what needed to be done. I removed the obstacle. We. Demon's hand tightened on his sword. Who else is involved, Morgana? How deep does this betrayal go? Deep enough that by the time I am done, there will not be a Nightshade King on the northern throne. Morgana's eyes flicked to Alara, and her expression twisted into something ugly. Although I have to admit I am curious. Who is the little wolf you have been hiding in your tent? Did you really replace me that quickly? Elara felt Demon tense beside her, felt the rage rolling off him in waves. She is none of your concern, Demon said softly, dangerously. Oh, but she is, Morgana's smile widened. Because if she matters to you, then she is leverage, which means she dies. Nothing personal, sweetheart. She made a gesture, and the shadow wolves turned as one toward Elara. Everything happened at once. Damon moved to intercept, his sword singing as it left its sheath. The remaining guards rallied, throwing themselves between the assassins and their king. And Elara. Elara stopped thinking and let her instincts take over. Silver fire exploded from her body in a wave that lit up the entire clearing like a second sun. It poured from her hands, her arms, her very skin. And it did not burn. It protected. A wall of flame that the shadow wolves could not cross. That sent them skittering backward with yelps of pain and confusion. Impossible, Morgana breathed, her face going pale. That fire, that is ember wild flame. Demon finished, his voice filled with dark satisfaction. He stood beside Elara, his sword dripping with blood, and when he looked at her, there was something fierce and possessive in his eyes. Still thinks she is just leverage. Morgana's expression contorted with rage. Kill them! Kill them both! The shadow wolves attacked again, but they were hesitant now, afraid. Elara's fire had hurt them in a way normal flames could not, had touched something deep in their wolf souls and made them remember what it felt like to be prey. Demon used that hesitation ruthlessly. He moved like death itself, his sword finding throats and hearts with surgical precision. But he never strayed far from Elara, never left her unprotected. And every time one of the assassins got too close, her silver fire lashed out, driving them back, burning without consuming. They fought like that, back to back, moving in sync despite never having trained together. Like they had been doing this for years, like their bodies knew each other's rhythms without needing to be taught. It should have been impossible. It felt like destiny. Within minutes, 4 of the shadow wolves were dead. The 5th was badly wounded, limping back toward Morgana with its tail between its legs, and the 6th was running, disappearing into the trees like a coward. Morgana's face was a mask of fury and disbelief. This is not over, she snarled, already backing toward her own escape route. You think one little fire witch is going to save you? You think she is going to stop what is coming? I think you should run, Demon said softly, his sword pointed at her heart. While you still can. Morgana's eyes narrowed, then she turned and fled, her white furs vanishing into the darkness. Demon did not follow. For a long moment the clearing was silent, except for the sound of labored breathing and the crackle of Elara's dying flames. Then Demon turned to her, his eyes blazing with something that stole the air from her lungs. You, he said slowly, deliberately. You are extraordinary. Elara swayed on her feet. The adrenaline was wearing off, and with it came exhaustion. Not the crushing blackout like before, but deep weariness that settled into her bones. She had learned something. Her fire responded better when she had a purpose, when she was protecting instead of just healing. But it still took its toll. Demon was at her side in an instant, his arm around her waist, steadying her. I am all right, Elara said, though her voice betrayed her fatigue. You are learning to pace yourself. Demon's voice held approval. That firewall, you controlled it, did not just throw everything you had at the problem. I did not have a choice, Elara admitted. If I had burned myself out like last time, we both would have died. Smart. Demon guided her back toward her tent. Rest. Tomorrow we travel to the fortress, and tomorrow we start figuring out who else wants me dead. Elara looked up at him. Your wife, ex-wife, Demon corrected sharply. We have been separated for 2 years. The marriage was political, a mistake, and I have been trying to make the divorce official, but she refuses to sign the papers. Claims she still has rights as my legal spouse. He met Elara's gaze. She does not. Why did she try to kill you? Because I would not give her what she wanted. Damon's voice was cold. Power, access to the throne. She wanted to be queen, not just in title, but in truth. And when I refused, when I saw what she really was, beneath the pretty face, she decided if she could not have the throne beside me, she would take it over my corpse. Elara shivered, not from cold. She is going to come back. I know. Demon's jaw tightened. With more assassins, more schemes, which is why I need you. Need your fire to find out who on my council is working with her. Who I can trust. He stopped at her tent entrance. The offer still stands, Elara. Help me, and I will help you learn the truth about your grandmother, about the Emberwild power. Alara looked at the man who had somehow become her anchor in the space of a day, who saw her fire and did not flinch, who called her extraordinary instead of cursed. One condition, she said. Demon raised an eyebrow. If I do this, if I help you root out traitors, you promise me that when it comes down to a choice between your throne and my life, I get to make that decision. Not you, Demon's expression softened. Deal. He held out his hand, formal, binding. Alara took it, and silver fire sparked between their palms. Not painful, just right. Welcome to the pack, Alara Emberwild. Demon's voice was low. Intimate. Try not to die before I figure out what to do with you. Same to you, Your Majesty. And despite the danger, despite the uncertainty, despite knowing that Morgana would return with vengeance in her heart, Alara felt something uncurl in her chest that she had not felt in months. Hope. The girl who had been exiled for her fire had just made a deal with a king, and the world was about to learn what happened when two dangerous souls decided to stop running and start burning. 2 days later, Alara woke to sunlight streaming through windows she did not recognize. Not a tent, a room, stone walls, tapestries, and a bed so soft she had sunk into it like a cloud. The Nightshade Fortress. They had arrived at dawn after traveling through the night. Demon had insisted on speed over comfort, getting Alara behind defensible walls before Morgana could regroup, and what walls they were. Massive granite fortifications rising from the mountainside like they had been carved from the stone itself. Silver gates, towers that pierced clouds, and everywhere guards wearing the Nightshade crest, a black wolf howling at a crescent moon. This was power, wealth, centuries of dominance made physical, and Alara was sleeping in the royal wing, in a suite adjoining Demon's own chambers, connected by a door that stood open. She sat up slowly, testing her strength. The exhaustion from the fight had mostly faded. Her fire hummed beneath her skin, rested, ready, waiting. Alara. Demon's voice came from the connecting doorway. She turned, and her breath caught. He stood there in simple sleeping clothes, hair loose around his shoulders. No armor, no crown, just a man who had clearly not slept much either. How are you feeling, he asked. Better. Alara pushed back the covers. The servants left me enough clothes for a small army. She gestured to the wardrobe someone had filled while she slept. You are part of the royal household now. You will be expected to look the part. Demon moved into the room with easy familiarity. The council meets at noon. I want you there. Want them to see you, to understand that you are under my personal protection. And then we start testing your theory. Demon's eyes glinted. That your fire can sense corruption, identify traitors, because I have 15 counselors. And I am fairly certain at least half of them would celebrate if I dropped dead tomorrow. Alara's stomach nodded. What if I cannot do it? What if my power does not work that way? Then we find another method, Demon said simply. But I think you are selling yourself short. That firewall you created, you did not just protect us. You knew instinctively which wolves to burn and which to spare. Your power sorted friend from foe without you even thinking about it. He crossed to her, held out his hand. Trust your instincts, Alara. Trust your fire. It has kept you alive this long. She took his hand, and warmth spread through her. Not just the silver flames, but something deeper. Connection. The council chamber was everything Alara had feared. Cold, formal, full of wolves who looked at her with barely concealed hostility. 15 counselors, 8 women, 7 men. All dressed in expensive robes bearing their family crests. All radiating the kind of confidence that came from generations of privilege. And all staring at the exiled girl standing beside their king like she was an insult to their bloodlines. Demon did not seem to notice. Or care. He strode to the head of the massive table, Alara at his side, and when he spoke, his voice carried absolute authority. For those who have not heard, I was ambushed 4 days ago by assassins hired by someone on this council, poisoned, left to die in the unclaimed territories. Murmurs rippled through the room. Obviously, I survived, Demon continued. Thanks to this woman, Alara Emberwild, heir to a bloodline. I'm sure you all remember from your history lessons. The Emberwilds, healers, truth seekers, wolves who could burn through corruption and lies. More murmurs, louder now, some counselors paling. Over the next week, Demon said, each of you will submit to testing. Alara will touch you. Use her fire to determine loyalty. Those who are clean will be cleared. Those who are compromised, he paused, will face consequences. This is outrageous, one of the counselors sputtered. A thin man with a hooked nose and expensive rings. You cannot seriously expect us to submit to some exile's judgment. Some girl with delusions of grandeur and party tricks she calls magic. Valen Ashcroft, Demon's voice dropped to something dangerous. You seem very opposed to a simple test. One wonders why. I am opposed to tyranny, Valen shot back. To kings who execute loyal counselors based on the word of witches they bed. Alara felt Demon tense beside her, felt the rage building. But before he could respond, she stepped forward. You are afraid, she said quietly. All eyes turned to her. You are afraid because you know what I will find when I touch you. What secrets will burn away when my fire meets your lies. She met Valen's gaze without flinching. So yes, you should be opposed because guilt recognizes judgment when it sees it coming. The room fell silent. Then Damon smiled, sharp and cold. Well said. He looked at his guards. Counselor Ashcroft will be first. Tomorrow at dawn, the rest of you will be scheduled accordingly. This is not over, Valen hissed. Number, Demon agreed. It is just beginning. That night, Alara could not sleep. Again, she stood on her balcony, watching the fortress below, lights flickering in windows, guards patrolling walls. A kingdom that depended on a king who was one poison away from death. Cannot sleep, either Demon's voice. He stepped onto his own balcony, the narrow walkway between them close enough to touch. Too much on my mind, Alara admitted. Testing starts tomorrow. What if I am wrong? What if my fire does not work the way you think? Then we find another way, Demon said, like he had earlier. But you are not wrong. I saw your face during the council meeting. When you looked at Valen, you knew. Did you not? Alara nodded slowly. He reeks of corruption. Even without touching him, I could feel it, like rot beneath expensive perfume. Demon crossed the walkway to her balcony, stood beside her. Then trust that. Trust yourself. He was close enough that she could feel his warmth, close enough that her fire rose instinctively, reaching for him. Tell me about your family, Alara said, trying to change the subject. What do you want to know your father, the previous king? What was he like? Damon was quiet for a moment, hard, fair, distant. He looked out at the fortress. He taught me everything about being a king. Strategy, politics, combat, but nothing about being human, about trusting people or showing vulnerability or believing in anything beyond duty. He paused. My mother died when I was young. Plague, same one your grandmother fought, and my father. He buried his grief so deep I do not think he ever recovered. Just threw himself into ruling, into making sure his son would never be weak enough to love something more than power. Alara's heart ached for the boy he must have been. Is that why you married Morgana Political Alliance? Partly, Demon admitted, but also because I was young and stupid. Thought I could have a partnership without emotional entanglement. Thought she wanted the same thing. What did she want? Everything. His voice turned bitter. The throne. The power. Me as an accessory to legitimize her ambitions. When I refused to let her sit in on council meetings, refused to give her access to classified information, she started plotting. How long have you known? About 6 months, Demon said. I caught her in my study, reading sealed documents. She claimed she was just curious, but I saw the truth in her eyes. The calculation. Why not arrest her then? Because I am an idiot who thought maybe, just maybe, showing mercy would make her reconsider. Demon's jaw tightened. Instead, she used that time to recruit allies, to plan my assassination, to nearly succeed. But she did not succeed, Alara said quietly, because I found you, because you saved me. Demon turned to face her. Twice now. First my body, then my life. I owe you more than I can repay. You do not owe me anything. Yes, I do. He reached up, cupped her face in his hands, and I am tired of pretending otherwise. Demon, I am tired of being careful, of keeping distance, of acting like this thing between us is just strategy or convenience. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. I felt it the moment you touched me, the moment your fire poured into my veins. A connection I have never experienced with anyone. Like the moon goddess herself put you in my path. Alara's breath caught. That is just the magic, the healing. It creates a bond between healer and patient. Is it? Demon leaned closer. Because I have been healed before, by dozens of mages and healers, and none of them ever made my heart race like you do. None of them ever made me want to burn the world down just to keep them safe. His forehead rested against hers. Tell me you do not feel it too. Tell me I am imagining this, and I will step back. Keep my distance. Treat you like nothing more than a valued ally. She could not, because she did feel it. this pull between them that went deeper than fire or duty or shared danger. She felt seen, chosen, real. I feel it, she whispered. Demon kissed her, gentle at first, asking permission. But when Alara's hand slid into his hair, when she pulled him closer instead of pushing away, the kiss deepened. Silver fire erupted between them, but it did not burn. It sang, dancing across their skin, wrapping around them both. A visible manifestation of whatever bond had formed when life met death and chose to fight. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Demon rested his forehead against hers. Stay, he said, not just in the fortress, not just until we root out the traitors. Stay with me. Build something new. Prove that power does not have to corrupt. That fire does not have to destroy. Alara looked at the man who had seen her at her most dangerous and wanted her anyway. Ask me again when this is over, she said. When Morgana is defeated and your throne is secure, ask me then, and you will say yes. Maybe. Alara smiled. If you prove you can keep up with me. Demon laughed. Real and warm and absolutely devastating. Challenge accepted. The testing began at dawn. Velen Ashcroft stood in the center of the throne room, chains on his wrists, guards on either side, and Alara walking toward him with silver fire already dancing across her fingertips. The entire council had gathered to witness. Some curious, some terrified, all silent. This is barbaric, Valen said, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. Witch trials, superstition. You are better than this, your majesty. And my demon sat on his throne, perfectly still. Because from where I sit, I see a counselor who has protested this testing more loudly than anyone else, who has spent 2 days trying to rally opposition, who seems very, very afraid of what we might find. He nodded to Alara. Proceed. Alara placed her hand on Valen's chest and let her fire pour forth. It was different than healing. The flames did not seek injury or poison. They sought truth, sinking past skin and bone to the core of who Valen really was. And what she found made her sick. Meetings in shadows, gold-changing hands, Morgana's voice whispering promises, power, position, everything he had ever wanted if he would just help remove one small obstacle. One stubborn king who refused to see reason. He told her where you would be, Alara said, her voice hollow. The day of the hunt. He sent word to Morgana, told her which route you would take, when your guards would be fewest, where the ambush should happen. Valen's face went white. Lies. She is lying. I would never. Your payment was 5,000 gold pieces. Alara continued, eyes still closed, fire still searching, and a promise. When Morgana took the throne, you would be her chancellor, second only to the queen herself. She opened her eyes, met his gaze. You sold your king for a title and a purse. Number. Velen struggled against his chains. This is a trick, some kind of mind magic. I am loyal. I have always been enough. Demon stood. Velen Ashcroft. You are convicted of high treason by evidence that cannot be refuted. You will be stripped of title lands and holdings, and exiled beyond the northern territories. If you return, you will be executed on sight. Please. Valen's composure cracked. Your Majesty, I was coerced, threatened. My family, you made a choice. Demon's voice was cold as winter. And now you live with the consequences. Guards, remove him. As they dragged Valen away, still protesting, Demon turned to the remaining counselors. Who is next? Over the following week, Alara tested all 15 counselors. It was exhausting work. Each reading took everything she had, left her drained and shaking. But she pushed through, because the pattern became clear. 7 counselors were compromised. 7 wolves who had sold their loyalty for promises of power. Gold. Positions in Morgana's new order. The remaining 8 were clean, loyal, some out of genuine respect for Demon, others out of self-interest, but none actively plotting his death. By the end of the 7th day, the traitors sat in the dungeons, and the loyal counselors looked at Alara with something that might have been respect. You did well, Demon said that night. They were alone in his study, maps spread across his desk, plans for how to deal with Morgana. I feel filthy, Alara admitted. Touching that much corruption, that many lies, it is like it leaves residue. Demon crossed to her, pulled her into his arms. Then let me help you forget. He kissed her, and for a while the world narrowed to just them. To heat and need, and the silver fire that danced between their bodies like benediction. When they finally pulled apart, Alara was breathless. I could get used to this, she admitted. Good. Demon smiled against her lips. Because I am not letting you go. 3 days later, a messenger arrived. Alara was in the training yard, learning to fight from one of Demon's guards. How to use a blade when her fire failed. How to defend when exhaustion made her vulnerable. She was terrible at it, but getting better. Your Majesty. The messenger burst into the yard, out of breath, terrified. Word from the scouts. Morgana has gathered forces at the old Frostwind estate, between 400 and 600 wolves. She is preparing to march. Demon's expression went cold. How long? Days, maybe less. The messenger swallowed. She knows we are rebuilding, knows our forces are scattered. If she strikes now, she will lose, Alara said quietly. Everyone turned to stare at her. We are not going to wait for her to come to us, Alara said. She looked at Damon. You wanted to end this, to make sure Morgana can never threaten you again. Then we take the fight to her, on our terms, our timing. Demon's eyes gleamed. You want to attack the Frostwind estate. I want to finish this, Alara said. One way or another, the council was divided. Half wanted to fortify, to let Morgana come to them, to use the fortress's defenses. The other half agreed with Alara. Strike first, strike hard, end the threat before it could grow. How one of the counselors demanded, we have maybe 200 wolves combat ready. She has 3 times that number, plus mercenaries, plus whatever dark magic her family has been hiding for generations. We do not need 200 wolves, Alara said. We need one, enhanced, unstoppable, and positioned exactly where Morgana least expects. She looked at Demon. I have been training, learning to control the merge, to sustain it longer, to give you power without burning myself out. You almost died last time, Demon said, but his voice held hope. Last time I panicked. Alara held out her hand. Silver fire bloomed in her palm, controlled, shaped, a perfect sphere that pulsed with her heartbeat. This time I know what I am doing. She closed her fist. The fire compressed. I can make you into something that Morgana cannot fight, cannot beat, cannot escape. Her eyes met his. Let me end this. With you. The room fell silent. Then the eldest counselor spoke. The woman with silver hair who had first welcomed Alara. If it works, she said slowly, if the Flamekeeper can truly sustain a merge long enough to penetrate their defenses, we end the war in a single day. And if it does not work, another counselor asked, then we lose our king and our Flamekeeper in one battle. Then it has to work. Demon stood. Prepare supplies for a 3-day journey, small strike force, fast travel. He looked at Alara. We leave at dawn. They spent that night making love like it might be their last. Desperate and tender and absolutely certain that whatever happened tomorrow, they would face it together. When Alara finally fell asleep, wrapped in Demon's arms, she dreamed of fire. Silver flames that burned without consuming. That wrapped around a massive black wolf and made him shine like a star. And in the dream, a voice whispered, the flame that walks will rise when darkness seeks the throne. She who burns with silver light will stand between the world and night. 2 paths lie before the burning one. Save the kingdom and lose yourself. Or save yourself and watch the kingdom burn. But she need not burn alone. Alara woke with tears on her face. Demon held her, stroked her hair, did not ask about the dream. He already knew. Tomorrow they would face Morgana. Tomorrow they would prove that the prophecy was wrong. Tomorrow they would find the third path. Together. They left at dawn, just the 2 of them, moving fast through forests Alara had come to know during her exile. Demon had insisted on a small force, a strategic strike rather than an army. Beat over numbers. The counselors had argued, but in the end they had agreed, because they had seen what Damon and Alara could do together, had watched them fight in the training yard, had seen the silver glowing wolf that was more than natural, more than possible. They had seen legend made flesh, and legends did not need armies. Alara Damon said as they ran, his wolf form keeping pace with her human sprint easily. There is something I need to tell you. Before we reach the estate, before everything becomes case and blood. He shifted, and they stopped in a small clearing, snow falling gently around them. The ring I gave you, he said, the one from the archives. There is more to that story than I told you. Alara's hand went to the silver band on her finger, the metal warm against her skin, despite the cold. What do you mean the Flamekeeper who wore that ring 300 years ago? Her name was Embera. She served my ancestor, King Aldrich Nightshade, and she was not just his advisor or his healer. Demon's voice dropped. She was his mate, his true mate, the wolf the moon goddess herself had chosen for him. Alara's breath caught, and he betrayed her. Worse, Demon said. He loved her. Truly loved her. But he was afraid. Afraid that showing weakness, showing that he needed anyone would make him vulnerable. So he used her, took her power and her loyalty and her love, and gave nothing back. He looked at the ring on Alara's finger. She burned out saving him from an assassination attempt. Used everything she had. And when she died, he realized what he had lost, what he had destroyed. Demon's hand covered hers. He had that ring made, silver etched with flames. A promise he never got to keep. That if the moon goddess ever gave his bloodline another chance, another flamekeeper, we would do better. We would be worthy of the bond. Tears burned behind Alara's eyes. Why are you telling me this now? Because I need you to understand, Demon said. This is not just about strategy or politics or saving my kingdom. This is about breaking a cycle that has haunted my family for 300 years. He went down on one knee, just like he had when he proposed. But this time there was something different in his eyes. Something raw and vulnerable, and absolutely terrifying in its honesty. I am not asking you to sacrifice yourself for me, he said. I am not asking you to burn out like Embera did, like your grandmother did. I am asking you to trust that I will break the connection before it goes too far. That I will choose you over the kingdom if it comes to that, Demon. I mean it. His voice was fierce. If it is you or the throne, I choose you. Every time, without hesitation. You cannot promise that. Watch me. He stood, pulled her close. 300 years ago, a Nightshade King let his Flamekeeper die because he was too proud to show he needed her, too afraid to be vulnerable, too convinced that duty mattered more than love. His forehead pressed against hers. I am not making that mistake. You are not a tool to be used and discarded. You are not a sacrifice waiting to happen. You are my partner, my equal, my choice. And if the moon goddess or the prophecy or anyone else has a problem with that, they can come tell me themselves. Alara kissed him, hard and desperate and full of everything she could not put into words. When they pulled apart, silver fire was dancing between them. Gentle, warm, a promise of its own. Then let us end this, she said. Together, together. The Frostwind estate sat in a valley between two mountains, ancient, fortified, designed to withstand sieges that could last months. Morgana stood on the highest balcony, watching the sunrise, waiting for scouts to return with news of the Nightshade Fortress. My lady, one of her lieutenants approached, his face pale. There are wolves at the gate, already. Morgana frowned. I thought we had at least 2 more days before not our wolves. The lieutenant's voice shook. It is him, the king, and the fire witch. They are alone, just the 2 of them, and they are demanding single combat. Morgana's breath caught. Single combat. Just them against her and her forces. It was suicide. It was exactly what she should have expected from a king too arrogant to see reason. Gather everyone, she said. Every wolf, every mercenary, every fighter we have. If Demon Nightshade is stupid enough to challenge us on our own ground, we are going to make an example of him. She smiled. Prepare my champion. The courtyard of the Frostwind estate was massive, large enough to hold hundreds of wolves, large enough for the spectacle Morgana wanted. She stood at the center, her crown of ice glittering in the morning light, and beside her Alara's heart stopped. Number. The woman standing next to Morgana was tall, golden-haired, beautiful in a way that Alara remembered from childhood. Liana, her sister. Hello, little sister, Liana said, her voice cold. Surprised Damon's hand tightened on Alara's shoulder. A silent question. Are you all right? Alara could not speak, could not breathe, because Liana was here, standing beside Morgana, wearing the white furs that marked her as one of the enemy. I see you have met my champion, Morgana purred. Your sister came to me months ago, jealous of your power, tired of living in your shadow, and I promised her what you stole from her. Recognition, respect, her own territory. Liana, Alara finally managed. Why? Why? Liana's laugh was bitter. You really have to ask. You were always the special one, the cursed one, the one everyone worried about and whispered about and tried to fix. Do you know what it is like to be invisible because your little sister is so damaged? She takes up all the air in the room. Liana took a step forward. I trained harder than anyone, shifted perfectly, followed every rule. And what did I get? Nothing. While you got exiled and ended up with a king. Her eyes blazed. So yes, I came to Morgana, and yes, I am going to help her destroy you. Not because she is paying me, But because I am tired of pretending I am happy for you, when really I wish you had never been born. The words should have hurt. Maybe a month ago they would have. But Alara had learned something in the time since her exile. She had learned that other people's hatred said more about them than it did about her. I am sorry, Alara said quietly. Sorry that you felt invisible. Sorry that our parents made you feel like you had to be perfect to be loved. Sorry that you are so consumed by jealousy that you cannot see what you are throwing away. But I am not going to apologize for existing anymore. Not to you, not to anyone. Liana's expression twisted. Big words from someone about to die. The terms are simple, Morgana said. Single combat, you and your pet king against me and my champion. Winner takes all territories. Loser exiles permanently. She smiled. Do you accept? Demon looked at Alara. She nodded. We accept. Then let us begin. Morgana shifted, her human form melting into something massive. A white wolf nearly as large as Damon, enhanced by dark magic, by centuries of frostwind power. And beside her, Lyanna shifted too. Golden fur, smaller than Morgana but fast, deadly. They circled. Demon shifted. That black wolf form Alara had first seen dying in the snow, now whole, braying, powerful. Alara placed her hands on his fur, and this time she did not just pour power into him. She merged, completely. Silver fire exploded outward, but it was different this time. Controlled, purposeful. It wrapped around Damon like a second skin, and then it went deeper, into his bones, his blood, his very soul. And something impossible happened. Damon's form changed, grew, not just larger, but transformed. His black fur took on a silver sheen, his eyes blazed white, and when he moved, the ground did not just tremble, it burned. Silver flames erupted where his paws touched earth, not destroying, just marking, claiming. Through the connection, Alara felt everything, every muscle, every thought, every instinct. They were not just fighting together. They were one consciousness in two forms. The battle was brutal. Morgana and Lyanna attacked as a coordinated unit. Fast strikes, feints, trying to separate Damon from Alara's influence, trying to break the merge. But it held. Damon moved with preternatural grace. Each strike guided by Alara's awareness. Each dodge anticipated before the attack even came. And through it all, Alara's fire burned. Not wildly, not dangerously, but with absolute precision. Every time Morgana tried to use her dark magic, silver flames intercepted, burned it away, left her exposed. Every time Lyanna got too close, fire wrapped around her legs. Not hurting, just stopping, holding her in place long enough for Demon to strike. Minutes passed, then an hour, and slowly, inevitably, Morgana and Lyanna began to tire. But the merged form, the silver wolf king that was Damon and Alara combined, did not. Because Alara had learned, had trained, had figured out how to sustain the connection without burning herself out. Impossible, Morgana gasped, her white fur matted with blood. This is not, you cannot. But they could, and Morgana knew it. She tried to run, to shift and disappear into the estate, but silver fire wrapped around her, chains of light that she could not break. Demon shifted back, still glowing, still merged. And when he spoke, it was with two voices, his and Alara's, harmonized. Morgana, Frostwind, you are defeated. No. Morgana struggled. This is not over. My family, my allies, they will. Your family created a plague that killed hundreds. Alara's voice came through clearly now. We have the evidence, the records, everything they tried to destroy. And when the territories hear the truth, when they learn what the Frostwind name really means, they will turn on you. Demon finished. Just like your own champion is about to. He gestured to Lyanna, who stood frozen, staring at Morgana with dawning horror. Is it true, Lyanna whispered. The plague, the one that killed our great aunt, that devastated the Crescent Moon Pack 30 years ago. Your family, they made it. Morgana's silence was answer enough. You told me, Lyanna's voice broke. You told me Damon was the monster, that he needed to be stopped, that we were fighting for justice. I told you what you needed to hear to be useful. Morgana spat, just like I told all of them. Promises, lies, whatever it took to gather an army stupid enough to die for my cause. She looked at Alara. But you were the variable I could not account for. The girl who should have stayed exiled, stayed broken, stayed alone, her eyes blazed with hatred. You were supposed to be nothing. But I was never nothing, Alara said quietly, the merge finally releasing, leaving her human, exhausted but standing. I was just waiting for the right moment, the right person, the right reason to stop hiding. She stepped forward, and you gave me that reason. Every assassination attempt, every scheme, every time you tried to destroy what Damon and I were building, you just made us stronger. Morgana laughed, bitter and broken. Then finish it. Kill me. Prove you are just as monstrous as everyone always said. No, Alara said, you do not get the mercy of death. You get to live in a cell while the world learns the truth about your family, while your legacy crumbles, while everything you fought for turns to ash. She looked at the gathered wolves, Morgana's army, who had been watching the entire battle. Anyone who still wants to fight for her, step forward now. No one moved because they had seen the truth, had heard Morgana admit to using them, had watched her fight alongside dark magic while Alara's silver fire burned clean and bright. Take her, Demon said to his guards, who had been waiting at the edges of the estate. Lock her in the deepest cell we have, and send word to every territory. The Frostwind conspiracy is ended. As they dragged Morgana away, still screaming threats, Alara turned to Lyanna. Her sister stood alone now, no longer wearing Morgana's white. Just a wolf who had made a terrible choice. I am sorry, Lyanna said, her voice small, for everything, for hating you, for joining her, for being so jealous I could not see. She stopped, tears streaming down her face. You were always the brave one, the special one, and I hated you for it. But watching you just now, watching you fight without fear, without apology. Lyanna looked up. I want to be like that. I want to stop being afraid of not being enough. Then start, Alara said gently. Go home. Tell our parents what you did. Face the consequences. And then figure out who you want to be when you are not defining yourself by what I am. She held out her hand. You can hate me if you want. You can be jealous and angry and resentful. But you are still my sister. And if you ever want to try being family again, actually being family, the door is open. Lyanna stared at her hand, then slowly she took it. Thank you, she whispered. Alara nodded and watched as Lyanna shifted and ran, not toward the Nightshade Fortress, but south, toward the Crescent Moon Pack, toward home, toward whatever reckoning waited there. You let her go, Demon said. She made a mistake, a big one, but she is trying to make it right. Alara leaned against him. Besides, I am tired of burning bridges. Time to start building them instead. Demon smiled and kissed the top of her head. Come on, let us go home. Home. The word still felt strange, foreign, but also right, because home was not a place anymore. It was this, him, the kingdom they were building together. The fortress welcomed them back with cheers. Word had spread, messengers racing ahead to announce the victory. And when Alara and Damon rode through the gates, every wolf in the courtyard was howling, celebrating. The war was over, Morgana was defeated, and the Flamekeeper had proven herself. The formal ceremony happened 3 days later. The throne room had been rebuilt, repaired, made even more beautiful than before, and it was packed. Wolves from every territory, counselors, guards, citizens, all gathered to witness something that had not happened in 300 years. The official bonding of a Nightshade King and his Flamekeeper. Demon stood at the center of the room, wearing formal armor etched with silver, his crown a simple circlet of dark metal, and beside him Alara. She wore a dress of deep blue velvet, embroidered with silver flames that seemed to move in the light. Her hair was loose, unbound, and on her finger the ancient ring gleamed. The eldest counselor stepped forward. 300 years ago, she said, her voice carrying through the chamber. A bond was broken. A Flamekeeper died, and a king learned too late what he had lost. She looked at Damon and Alara. Today, we restore that bond, not as it was, but as it should have been, equal, honored, chosen. She held out a silver chalice. Do you, Demon Nightshade Alpha, King of the Northern Territories, accept Alara Emberwild as your mate? Your equal, your partner in all things I do, Demon said, his voice steady. Do you, Alara Emberwild, Flamekeeper of the Northern Territories, accept Demon Nightshade as your mate? Your equal, your partner in all things I do. Then by the power of the Moon Goddess and the will of the Northern Pacts, I declare you bonded. Silver fire erupted from Alara's hands, gentle, controlled. It wrapped around both of them, a visible manifestation of the connection they had forged, and the crowd erupted in howls. Acceptance, celebration, joy. Alara felt tears streaming down her face, because she had spent 19 years being told she was too much, too dangerous, too broken. And here she was, standing in front of hundreds of wolves, being celebrated. "Thank you," she whispered to Damon, "for seeing me." "Thank you," he whispered back, "for choosing me." They kissed, and the silver fire blazed brighter. 5 years later, Ilara stood on the balcony of the Nightshade Fortress. Below in the courtyard, a small girl with silver-streaked dark hair was playing, chasing butterflies with flames that danced from her fingertips. Controlled, beautiful, absolutely fearless. Imbera Nightshade, 4 years old, and already showing signs of the power that ran through both sides of her bloodline. "Be careful, sweetheart," Ilara called. The girl looked up, grinned, and the flames shaped themselves into a butterfly, flew up to her mother, landed gently on Ilara's palm. "Look, Mama, I made it pretty." "You did," Ilara said, her heart swelling. "You made it perfect." Demon appeared behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist. "She is going to be a handful, just like her mother." "I was never a handful," Ilara protested. Demon laughed and kissed her neck. Below, Imbera was already running off to show her creation to the other children at the academy. To Mira, who was now 19 and one of the lead instructors. To the 150 wolves who had found family here. The Fire Academy had become everything Ilara had dreamed. A place where power was celebrated instead of feared. Where young wolves learned control instead of suppression. Where different meant special instead of broken. "Do you ever regret it?" Demon asked quietly. "Choosing this. Choosing me. Choosing to stay." Ilara turned in his arms. Looked up at the man who had seen her at her most dangerous and chosen to stand beside her anyway. Not for a single moment. Good, because he pulled out another small box. "This one's simpler than the first. I have been saving this, waiting for the right time." He opened it, and inside was a second ring, matching the first, but engraved with different words. "She who burns alone will set the world aflame. But she need not burn alone." The final line of the prophecy, Ilara whispered. "A reminder," Demon said, slipping the ring onto her other hand, "that we chose each other, that we found the third path, that we proved the prophecy wrong." And as if in response, silver fire bloomed around them both, gentle, warm, a blessing instead of a curse. The girl who had been exiled for her fire had found a home. The woman who had been told she was too dangerous had built a kingdom. And the flamekeeper who had been prophesied to burn alone had found someone worth burning with. The world would never be the same, and Ilara Emberwild would not have it any other way. The end. Deep in the dungeons of the Nightshade Fortress, in the darkest cell where no light ever reached, Morgana sat. She had stopped screaming months ago, stopped plotting, stopped hoping, because the truth had come out. The records of the plague, the evidence of her family's crimes, and the territories had turned on her. The Frostwind name was ruined. Her allies had scattered. Her wealth had been seized. She was nothing now. Just a prisoner waiting for a trial that would only confirm what everyone already knew. But as she sat in the darkness drawing symbols on the wall with her own blood, Morgana smiled. Because there was one thing they did not know. One secret her family had guarded for longer than the plague. Longer than the betrayal. Magic that ran deeper than fire. "They think fire is the only ancient power," she whispered to the empty cell. "But ice remembers. Ice always remembers." Her breath frosted. The temperature in the cell dropped. And for just a moment, her eyes glowed ice blue. Not now, not yet. But someday. The Frostwind line would rise again, and when it did, the Flamekeeper and her king would learn what it meant to face winter's fury. Morgana closed her eyes and waited, because ice was patient and vengeance was cold.